The day that we lost Jayson will forever be the worst day of my life. I have 4 children. Jake is the oldest, and Jayson, and Justin, and Jesse. Jayson and Justin are identical twins. Jayson is truly the center of our family. He is a person at any point, walks through the door, tells a joke, tries to annoy everyone, just silly. So many different things. A hard worker. Most importantly, though, Jayson was a daddy to Kaysen.
Just the funniest person you would ever meet. But at the same time would do anything to try and annoy me. It's just what brothers do. Yeah, so I have 3 older brothers, and I don't know, from the beginning, they've always really shaped how I viewed life, and they inspired me to get into a lot of things.
Jayson was determined. He was a perfectionist by his own right. He strived to be great at everything, whether that be school, sports, whatever it was, and he made it look easy. He did an exceptional job at everything that he did.
Jayson and Justin got into sports at a young age, so I got into sports at a young age. They excelled in basketball, so I tried to excel in basketball. They did baseball, so I did softball. It was just one of those things that they didn't know they were doing it. They probably weren't trying to do it, but they did.
And for them, their sports teams were different, and they always had excelled, both Jayson and Justin. So they were definitely given more opportunity in that spectrum. When Jayson started his freshman year of high school, he did start hanging out with an older group of kids, and that did open a door for probably the first time that he would have engaged in marijuana use and drinking. We obviously were unaware of that. So a change there in friends definitely made a difference in what he was taking part in. Then his sophomore year, he started dating a gal on a regular basis. And so all of those different activities really subsided. Hadn't done any of that. They went through dating all through high school, and when they graduated, they actually moved out together. And then Jayson had bought a house. He was working full-time, and they were pregnant, so they were going to have a baby. They had a baby January 21st of 2020. So Jayson was 20 years old. Again, like I said, working full-time and providing for his family. He started running with a different group of people, and of course the different people were single and had just a different lifestyle than what he was used to. And so that gave opportunity to go back into substance use of some sort. He had a friend pass away from brain cancer in July of 2021. That definitely took a toll on Jayson. His demeanor, his overall just disposition. I mean, he was depressed. Him and I talked many different times, whether it be him being a single father, trying to get through that, and with all the responsibilities. So he had gone to our doctor, had talked to them about anxiety and depression. He had gone, and him and Justin had bought a whole garage full of equipment to work out, to start that again. Jayson even started some counseling. And all of this he volunteered to do. He knew that he was struggling. He would call me and we would talk, and I would make a recommendation. Let's do this. And he, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, go ahead, I'd help him get the appointment set up, and he would go. So at that point, we didn't suspect anything other than maybe drinking some and maybe smoking marijuana. But other than that, we had no idea that there was anything else going on. I mean, it was really after that whole experience there, then we knew that he had taken part in taking some of the pills. Percocet is what he had asked for, and what he got was fentanyl.
Losing Jayson and not knowing about fentanyl was kind of a slap in the face, like a wake-up call, in a sense. And it just sucked not even knowing that it was out there, not even having any idea that could happen.
We received a phone call, or I received a phone call at 8:18 in the morning, a Sunday morning. It was Labor Day weekend, that we needed to get to Jayson's house. EMTs were there performing CPR, and that's all they told us. So we lived 3 miles from Jayson, and my husband and I got into the truck and drove into town. And when we got there, they wouldn't let us go into the house. There were 2 ambulances there at that point, lots of law enforcement, lots of just firefighters. Everybody was there, it seemed, and they were working on him. His best friend had come outside, and he was in shock himself. What was happening to Jayson? It wasn't long after that, EMS came out, or one of the paramedics came out and talked briefly to one of the officers there. And then at that point, the officer pulled my husband and I aside and told us that Jayson had passed. And there was nothing more they could do. At that point, your world kind of stops. I had to make phone calls to Justin. He didn't answer his phone. It was early on a Sunday morning. Jake, our oldest, he's a lineman, and he was in New Orleans on a storm crew. So I didn't even know how to make the phone call to him. I did finally get a hold of Justin, and I just said, you need to come to Jayson's. And he got there in a matter of minutes, and I couldn't even find the words to tell him. He just walked up and said, "What's going on?" And all I could do is shake my head. After we were there for a little while, I realized we needed to get home and get home quickly to be able to tell Jessie before she maybe received a message from a friend or saw something on social media. We live in a small town. And so we went home, and she was still asleep, thank goodness, so she hadn't even looked at her phone. And Justin, before he left Jayson's house, he said, "Mom, just tell people, just say it. Don't because I just didn't have the words. So when I went to tell Jesse, all I could say is, Jayson died. And she screamed.
The morning that Jayson passed away, we were supposed to be going out to the lake. We have a lake house, and it was Labor Day, so I had invited my friend to come with us, and so when my parents first opened my door to tell me about Jayson, my mind goes to, oh my gosh, I overslept. My friend is probably wondering, like, when are we going out, that type of thing, and my dad sat down on my floor, and I was like, that's weird. He wouldn't just sit down to tell me that I overslept. That was just odd. And my mom, she just kind of leaned over and told me Jayson died. And like she said, I just screamed. Like, I don't know what you do when you are told that your best friend is gone forever, but that's all I could do. I just sat there and screamed. Not long after they told me, I did have text messages saying, I'm so sorry. So word spreads really, really fast, and that's why they wanted to come home to tell me.
And yeah, and that's when our world as we knew it turned upside down. So, Jayson, Jayson's little guy, he was just 19 months. So he, of course, did not understand, what was happening, what was going on. But yeah, so that's about that day. We had, that Sunday morning, there was a lot of law enforcement at Jayson's, and they were very, they were genuinely, obviously concerned about what had happened, what had transpired. Nobody knew. They were very kind. We met with them multiple times. I think 3 days into this, they had called for the KBI to come in and help because, again, we're in a small community and these kind of things don't happen in our community, so they needed more resources. That officer then came to our house to meet with us, and we were able to give them information. Justin was able to give them a lot of information about Jayson and was able to help them on all fronts, whether that be the Venmo accounts, the Snapchat, because he knew everything there was to know about Jayson and how to access all of that information. So with that being said, the investigation took off right from that point. And of course, the phone was evidence, so it was taken. We still, this far into it, we still don't have Jayson's phone back. So Justin just knew of all of the login information on how to access Jayson's information. So that was very helpful. Law enforcement at that point, told us they wanted us to stay pretty quiet about what had happened because they wanted to be able to do their job and to do it effectively. In a small community, they knew that, if we started talking, then, it was probably not going to make, it wasn't going to make their process easy. Yeah. So we sat for what seemed like an eternity, but they had made an arrest. Jayson passed September 5th of 2021, and they made an arrest September 6th of 2022. So a year and a day after Jayson had passed is when they made that arrest. That was not fast on all accounts. They would keep us up to date on what was kind of going on. But these cases are so hard to prove. They knew that they needed to let everybody get comfortable, and then once everybody got comfortable, people were going to start to talk. And that's exactly what happened in our case. So, and I don't know, as far as our local law enforcement, I think they did everything that they could do on all fronts. And then just the KBI agent coming in, he knew how to work some avenues, and it was just going to take time. And they had told us, and for us, the time wasn't really a factor because had there been a certain amount of time and Jayson would have come back to us, I would have been running. I would have exhausted any avenue that we could have. But we know at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much time is spent. We wanted them to do their job and to do it effectively. So we, once we got here, we could proceed on and not have any issues. So the amount of time, it was excruciating, but we wanted it done and done right. So that's what they did. We did have a trial. December 4th is when we started trial. It was a week-long trial, and the jury did find him guilty of distribution causing bodily harm or death. Our sentencing was yesterday, January 18th of 2023. The judge did sentence him to the max sentence. So where I am happy that I am grateful that Jayson is getting justice. It still is heartbreaking on all accounts. So many lives. Just the amount of destruction and heartache that goes through is just tragic, just unimaginable. The thing that did surprise everyone is that he, on record, on a recorded device, told the KBI agent that Jayson had asked for Percocet. He sold him fentanyl. Jayson didn't know that it was fentanyl, but the dealer did know and didn't care to tell anybody. The dealer was someone that Jayson trusted. He's a few years younger than Jayson. I don't know that Jayson would have considered him a friend, but an acquaintance, of course. He's known for passing, substance in our community. So it wasn't a huge surprise. 2 days after this happened to us, my daughter was adamant about, Mom, we have to tell people. We have to warn them. They have to know the dangers of this because our person didn't. Jayson did not know the dangers of fentanyl. At that point, I couldn't even stand upright. I couldn't even, get through the day without just being a mess. So it's taken me a while, but in August of 2022, I did start into the schools and doing some presentations on the dangers and awareness of fentanyl. I quickly then moved into a community health educator role. So in our communities, I'm helping develop that message and spread that to the youth, to community members, to parents, anybody that will listen.
Me and my mom did start a Facebook page called My Story Isn't Over Yet. It's for my brother. We talk about my brother. The posts on there are occasionally scarce because we're quite busy, but yeah.
it helps for me to be able to talk about Jayson. We understood why we couldn't talk about him for 2 years plus, but at the same time, that makes it really, really hard. My kids are absolutely everything to me, so not to be able to share the world with Jayson's story and information was really hard. So it is nice to be able to talk about him. Yesterday in my victim impact statement, I said Jayson and I will continue to save lives. His story will go on, and between him and I, we will educate and try to spread the awareness as much as we can.
Some people listen and some people don't. They think it doesn't apply to them, and that's something that I can honestly say I would say the same thing if I was in their boat. I would say my brothers would never do that. My brothers don't do drugs. They're not drug addicts. That's crazy. Yeah. So I don't think what they're saying is too far off from how I would approach it either. Because I know that if it was the other way around and I was in Jayson's position, I don't know that he would go out and talk in front of people, but he would be mad. He would start some fights with some people and make change happen. So that's my job and my family's job now.